What if the lessons of Jesus that once shaped the heart of America are slowly being forgotten? We live in a culture that celebrates freedom, ambition, and independence. Yet in the quiet moments, many feel a hollow ache, as if something essential has slipped away. I once spoke with an elderly man sitting outside a small-town church. He whispered, "I chased success, built a name, but I forgot the simple things Jesus taught me. And now I wish I had lived them sooner." His words still echo, because they are not his story alone. They are the story of countless Americans who discovered too late that forgiveness, love, and faith were never optional. They were the very foundation of life. This video is not about looking back with regret. It's about reclaiming those timeless truths before it's too late. Stay with me, because the first lesson, the power of forgiveness, might be the key you've been searching for. We live in a nation that prizes justice, accountability, and the right to stand our ground. These values shape the American spirit, but somewhere along the way, mercy often gets left behind. Jesus' teaching about forgiveness was not an abstract moral lesson. It was an invitation to freedom. "Forgive, and you will be forgiven," he said. Modern psychology now confirms what Jesus taught 2,000 years ago. Unforgiveness can trap the mind in bitterness, fuel anxiety, and even harm physical health. Scientists studying stress responses have found that holding grudges keeps the body in a constant state of tension. By contrast, forgiveness reduces blood pressure, lowers cortisol, and restores peace. But beyond science lies the heart. Consider Michael, a father from Ohio. For over a decade, he lived estranged from his only son after a bitter argument. Birthdays passed, holidays passed, and both grew older in silence. Michael believed he was protecting his pride. Yet, as the years slipped by, he began to realize he was protecting nothing but loneliness. Only when his health declined did he reach out. His son's tears on the other end of the phone made him weep too. "Why did we waste so much time?" Michael whispered. Forgiveness is not about excusing wrongdoing. It is about releasing yourself from the weight of carrying anger. Jesus knew that grudges are chains that bind the soul, and that only grace can set us free. In America, we often think forgiveness is weakness, yet in reality, it is one of the greatest strengths a person can choose. Picture a family table with an empty chair. The silence speaks louder than any words. Now imagine that same chair filled again, because one person had the courage to say, "I forgive you." That moment can heal generations. So pause for a second. Who is the one person you still need to forgive? Maybe it's a parent, a friend, or even yourself. The act may feel impossible, but that is why it is so powerful. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, but it changes the future. And when we choose it, we step into the very freedom Jesus promised. As we reflect on this, remember, forgiveness is only the beginning. Love itself carries an even deeper weight, and without it, life loses its true meaning. But forgiveness is only the beginning, because love itself carries a deeper weight. Lesson 2. Love beyond convenience. In today's America, love is often reduced to a feeling, something we fall into when it's easy and fall out of when it's hard. But Jesus spoke of a love that went far beyond convenience. He called it agape, sacrificial love, love that endures when it costs something. "Greater love has no one than this," he said, "to lay down one's life for one's friends." Sociologists point to a growing loneliness epidemic in the United States. Despite being more digitally connected than ever, millions feel isolated, longing for relationships that are deep and dependable. Quick interactions on social media cannot replace the steady presence of someone who chooses to love through struggle. Jesus' timeless lesson reminds us that love is not proved when it's easy, it's proved when it's inconvenient. Take the story of Maria, a single mother working 2 jobs in Texas. She comes home exhausted, barely enough energy to prepare dinner for her 2 children. Yet when she notices her elderly neighbor struggling with groceries, she pauses, puts down her own bags, and helps him inside. For her, love is not a theory. It is a sacrifice she makes daily, even when no one applauds. This kind of love changes lives. Children who experience steady, selfless love grow more resilient. Communities where neighbors help each other thrive even in hard times. Scientific research backs this up. Consistent acts of service not only uplift the receiver, but also reduce stress and depression in the giver. Love, when lived as service, heals both sides. But here's the challenge. Americans often confuse love with comfort. We walk away when relationships demand patience. We withdraw when someone offends us. We hold back when it costs our time or resources. Yet Jesus' lesson is the opposite. Love that endures through hardship is the only love that truly transforms. Imagine a nation where more marriages chose sacrifice over convenience, where more friendships survived offense, where more families stayed united in hard seasons. The ripple effect would be immeasurable. Love lived this way creates legacy. So here's a gentle challenge for you. Think of one person in your life who needs your love, not when it's easy, but when it's costly. Maybe it's a friend who keeps failing, a spouse who feels distant, or a parent who's hard to please. What would it look like to show them love beyond convenience? This is not just moral advice, it's a lifeline for our culture. Jesus' words remind us that a life defined by sacrificial love is never wasted. It builds relationships that last, families that heal, and communities that flourish. And if love is the foundation of life, then trust becomes the roof. Because without faith, everything collapses under the weight of fear. And if love is a foundation, then trust becomes the roof. Because without faith, everything collapses. Lesson 3. Faith over fear. America is more anxious than ever. News headlines warn of economic collapse, political division, climate crisis, and personal safety concerns. According to recent surveys, anxiety disorders affect nearly 1 in 5 adults, and stress-related illnesses are on the rise. Fear has become the background noise of modern life. Yet Jesus spoke words that cut through fear with a promise of peace. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Trust in God. Trust also in me. His lesson was simple but profound. Faith is not the absence of storms, but the anchor that keeps us steady within them. Think of Daniel, a veteran returning from deployment. He carried invisible scars, sleepless nights, sudden panic, and a deep fear of never feeling normal again. Therapy helped, but it was when he rediscovered faith in God that something shifted. Daniel began to pray each night, handing over his fears one by one. Slowly, the storm inside him began to calm. He still faced challenges, but now he carried them with strength, not his own. Faith, psychologists note, reduces anxiety because it gives meaning and perspective. People of faith often handle stress better, recover faster from setbacks, and report higher levels of hope. Science affirms what Jesus promised. When we anchor ourselves in something larger than our fears, peace follows. But faith is not passive. It requires a choice, daily, sometimes hourly, to trust God's presence even when circumstances scream otherwise. Fear whispers, "You're alone." Faith answers, "I am with you always." Fear insists, "The future is uncertain." Faith reminds, "Your future is held by God." Picture two possible futures. In one, fear dictates every decision. You avoid risks, relationships, and opportunities, shrinking your world smaller and smaller. In the other, faith directs your steps. You still face challenges, but with courage, resilience, and an inner calm. Which life would you rather live? This is the lesson many Americans forget until late in life, when they look back and realize how many moments were stolen by worry. Fear consumes, but faith frees. Fear limits, but faith expands. Fear paralyzes, but faith moves forward. So pause and reflect. What fear has been ruling your decisions lately? Is it fear of failure, fear of rejection, or fear of not having enough? What would it look like to surrender that fear and replace it with trust? Jesus never promised a life without storms, but he promised his presence through them. And when forgiveness, love, and faith weave together, they create a life that is not only resilient, but deeply fulfilling. Because these are not just lessons to admire, they are lifelines to live. And the final thread ties them all together in a way that leads to peace, purpose, and legacy. And when forgiveness, love, and faith weave together, something extraordinary happens. These lessons of Jesus, forgiveness, love, and faith, are not distant teachings preserved in old scriptures. They are lifelines meant for today, for this very moment. They remind us that life is not measured by what we achieve, but by how deeply we forgive, how sacrificially we love, and how faithfully we trust. I once met an elderly woman in a nursing home who said something I'll never forget. She looked at me with peaceful eyes and whispered, "I didn't have much in life. I never owned a big house, never made a fortune, but I chose to forgive when it was hard, to love when it was inconvenient, and to trust God when I was afraid. And now I realize that gave me everything." Her words carried no regret, only gratitude. That is the legacy Jesus invites us to build. Imagine for a moment a nation where families reconcile instead of divide, where love is stronger than convenience, and where faith calms the noise of fear. That vision begins with you. It begins with one choice to live these timeless lessons today, not someday, not later, but now. So here's my gentle invitation. Take one small step. Forgive someone who weighs on your heart. Show love to someone when it costs you something. Trust God with the fear you've been carrying. These are not small gestures. They are seeds that grow into peace, purpose, and legacy. If this message touched you, share it with someone who might need a gentle reminder. You never know whose life could be lifted by a simple word of hope. And if you want to go deeper, don't miss our next video, where we'll explore how Jesus' wisdom redefines what true success really means. Because the way he saw life and the way he invites us to live can still transform America one heart at a time.